people again and put people back to work.
Mr. President.
Senator from Illinois.
Mr. President, first I want to commend our colleague from Oklahoma, Senator Boren, for his leadership on this matter. This is a concept that is overdue. And let me just say to my colleague from Oklahoma that Senator Robb came along to me while you were speaking, and he wants to be added as a co-sponsor, so we have 9 instead of 8, and we're gradually moving in the right direction. We have to do something in this country, Mr. President, to make this country more productive. February of 1991, we had 8,131,000 people who are listed as unemployed. February of 1992, 9,244,000, an increase of 1,113,000 who are listed as unemployed. And I'll get back to why I mentioned listed. My state of Illinois, 362,000, February of 1991, listed as unemployed. February of 1992, 521,000, an increase of 159,000 in one state. And I say listed as unemployed because this doesn't count the discouraged worker, the person who is just giving up, who no longer is signing up at the employment office or any place, who just really has given up on our society. It doesn't count the person who works part-time. If you work 1 hour a week, you're not counted as unemployed. The great division in our society, Mr. President, is not between black and white, not between Hispanic and Anglo, not even between rich and poor. It is between those who have hope and those who've given up. And we have too many people in our society who've given up. We need to give them that sense of hope. And two things only, really give people a sense of hope. One is to have a job and feel like you are offering something, contributing something in a productive way to our society. The second is to see that your children are moving ahead educationally. We have to give people one of those two indications of hope, and we can really give them both. We have all kinds of things that need to be done in our country, and we have all kinds of people who are unemployed. Why don't we have the good sense to mesh the two? We ought to be doing that. And for some time, I have been working on this concept, and I am very, very pleased to have Senator Boren join in this effort. I wrote a few years back a book called Let's Put America Back to Work, suggesting that we really can learn from that WPA concept. We have, for example, among the unemployed, a great many people who really know how to read and write, some of whom, after I was on a radio station and a call-in, someone called in and said, believe it or not, I have a doctorate and I am temporarily out of work. I am sure it's temporary, but if I could be teaching someone how to read and write or doing something like that, I'd be happy to do it. There's no reason we can't be doing that. We have all kinds of people who don't know how to read and write. We have people who know how, who are unemployed. Why don't we put the two together? Why don't we do something that is needed, everyone acknowledges is needed, and that is to plant some trees in this country. Not too long ago in southern Illinois, not far from my home, I went past a field where I saw they were clearing the trees so a farmer could plant corn or soybeans or whatever he or she wanted to plant. And I understand that. But when you cut down those trees, when you put in new shopping centers and parking lots and housing developments, down the river somewhere you're going to have floods, and you're going to have a demand from somebody, let's get the Corps of Engineers in here to have a flood control project. What if we took the people who are out of work today and planted 1 million trees each year? or 10 million trees each year, we would be a better country all the way around. Mr. President, because I know of your interests in the literary field, I think you will recognize this particular example that I use. When I was, I don't know, 10, 12, 14, something like that, I read Richard Wright's book, Black Boy. It is not as famous as his book, Native Son, but it was a moving, gripping experience for me to read what it meant for someone to grow up as an African American in this country. It wasn't until many years later that I learned that Richard Wright learned to write under a WPA project. Instead of just having someone non-productive, we had him writing, and he enriched the nation, and he enriched me in this process. This bill will head to the Labor and Human Resources Committee, I assume, and head to the subcommittee on employment that I chair. I think we're going to have to modify it some. I think initially we're probably going to have a demonstration project. And I'm thinking, and I'm just thinking out loud, I've not talked to my colleagues in the subcommittee, but maybe we start with 3 states and an Indian reservation. But let's see what we can do to let people be productive and earn a little more money in the process. The average family on welfare in the state of Illinois, I don't know what it is in Pennsylvania, but in the state of Illinois, the average family on welfare makes $367 a month. Under this proposal, you would work 4 days a week at the minimum wage in projects that are picked by local committees. 4 days a week at the minimum wage. That's not a lot of money, but it would amount to $535 a month. For someone making $367, that's significant. But it gives people a chance to be productive. We're going to pay people either for being productive or non-productive. And I think we ought to be paying people for being productive. And part of what I hope will be part of this is that we will have a screening process. And if people are out of work, and incidentally, part of this bill is that 25% of the jobs are reserved not for those on welfare, but for people who are out of work 5 weeks or more. One of the mistakes that we make in our society today is that we force people to become paupers before we help them. We can do better than that, Mr. President. And I think it follows logically on the proposals that have been made and the leadership that's been provided by Senator Moynihan, our colleague from New York, who has been stressing training and other things as part of what we ought to be providing in this welfare field. I mentioned that people will work 4 days a week. That's the way it was in the old WPA, and for a very important reason, and that is the 5th day you can be out trying to find a job in the private sector. What we want to do is to give people a work opportunity, but we also want to encourage them to be out working in the private sector. Mr. President, the need is simply overwhelming. We have been too indifferent to the desperate in our society. And if we give them a chance to be productive, a chance to have pride, that's what everyone wants, is a chance to have pride. And let me add, it meshes with the national need. New York Times, 3 weeks ago, had these figures, and I remember them on from going back over a 12-year period, the productivity growth of the United States and some other countries. Productivity growth in the United States for that 12-year period, 12%, 1% a year. productivity growth for Great Britain. We sometimes suggest that Great Britain has made some serious economic mistakes, and maybe they have, but that 12-year period, the productivity growth for Great Britain, 33%. For France, 38%. For what was then West Germany, 39%. For Japan, 58%. We have to become more productive as a people. And we're going to be competing with the rest of the world in one of two ways. Economists don't agree on very much, as you know, Mr. President, but they do agree on this. You compete with the rest of the world either with low wages or high skills. I want us to be productive. I want us to compete with high skills. I want to give people a chance in our society whom we're ignoring. And I think this bill that has been introduced by Senator Bourne does that. I'm pleased to be a co-sponsor. I hope we can move in the right direction on this. Mr. President, I see the minority leader here, and so I will not question the presence of a quorum, and I will listen to words of wisdom from the senior senator from Kansas.
Senator from Kansas.
Not certain to be words of wisdom, but I appreciate my colleague and I. It was leader's time reserved.
It has been.
I thank the chair. Mr. President, I rise today in recognition of a Kansas family that epitomizes the American tradition of duty and service. From 1940 to 1958, the Trinkler family of Racine, Kansas,
lower our standards to meet this problem. Military can help in this transition. We can do a lot, but we can't become, the military cannot become social. David, I don't know. I haven't seen enough on it to be able to judge. I did read the Wall Street Journal article yesterday, and I read some of the rebuttals from the Clinton campaign. That's all I know about it. Certainly, kind of controversy like this is not helpful. But we've seen with the tremendous attention that was paid to this same kind of allegations with Dan Quayle, and yet he's going to take it to 160%. A lot of states, including Georgia. So I don't know how much effect it will have. It'll be a factor by certain people that bring it up. But if Bill Clinton's story is accurate and holds up, which I have every reason to believe it will, then it seems to me it would not be a huge issue, although it may be an issue. hate to tell y'all that's not new news because you probably don't play it, but I've been saying that for 3 months. We really have to have one person in charge. Secretary Eagleburger is a great public servant. Nothing against him. He's got too much on his plate. Cannot do it. You have to have a cabinet level official who has nothing else to do. Look at the both humanitarian as well as the proliferation problem in the former Soviet Union. We need somebody else, equivalent to that, to look after Eastern Europe. It's not that we can solve all their problems, but there are certain critical things that we can do that would make an enormous amount of difference. We don't have to spend any money on military conversion. But what we have to do, the president has to say to the American business community, it is now national security for American businesses to take a look at the possibility of investment in the former Soviet Union, in defense industries that are willing to convert, get out of making missiles and airplanes and ships and tanks and ammunition, and get into something more productive. Not